Welcome in. It's that time again. Time to walk in and dive a little deeper in the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of the Jaguar Report. And this podcast would not be complete without the great football mind of my dude of BigCatCountry.com, Travis Holmes. What's good with you, champion?
Man, I'm doing well. I'm feeling fat after this Thanksgiving. I'm feeling very thankful for these Jacksonville Jaguars. What's going on, bro?
And see, listen, in that eloquent fashion, let us be among the last to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Hope that your holiday went well and that your football was gracious. It certainly was for the Duval Devout on Sunday when they went to Houston to take care of business. We'll get in that in just a minute. But Travis, since you kept with the food analogy, let me dump this in here a little bit on you. I feel like you went with the food. I'm going to go with the food. I feel like the Jacksonville Jaguars are analogous to McDonald's potato goods. Yes, I said it. McDonald's potato goods. All right. Because I went to breakfast this morning and listen, McDonald's fries get all this hype and people want to say they're the best ever, and they aren't, but they're just really, really good. I'm not here to tell you that Trevor is bad. He's really, really good. Maybe he's a skosh overrated, but he's still what everybody talks about. But you want to know what really makes me smile? That's a McDonald's potato. And I realized it this morning when I took a crisp bite into the golden brown hash browns, and they made me smile. Made me realize, yes, that's the reason I actually went to McDonald's was for these hash browns, not for those fries. The defense doing a butt ton of weight. And of course, we'll have a lot of video evidence to that here during the show that you'll break down as well. And by the way, this isn't me hating Trevor. You see the at TG on the social. Don't come at me like, Trevor Lawrence is stupid. No, he's good. He's good. Yes. I think he's I mean, he's definitely top 10. Maybe we'll talk about top 7 or top 5. I don't know. But what I can tell you is as far as getting W's this year, hand me the hash browns, Travis. I'm just throwing it out there.
My man said he loves the hash browns. The fries can be hit and miss depending on how old they are, how much salt they've added. And we don't have a McDonald's sponsorship. We're not trying to slam McDonald's fries
for one. I don't know, but the punchline is.
But I agree. But I do agree. Those hash browns, they do not. They are hitting. I give you that.
They're always that. You could come in with some burritos, the breakfast burritos. You could come in with some muffins. That's fine. McMuffin action, whatever. Okay? The success of your meal isn't dependent on the protection that is the quarter pounder. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes you got the protection from that. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you got the protection of a Big Mac. Sometimes it's filet of fish. Okay,
but when you have a day that the fries are just not hitting, it does ruin the meal, and that is very analogous to a Trevor Lawrence. I give you that. Good work, sir. Good work.
Fortunately, thanks to the acquisition of Ezra Cleveland, you won't ever have a filet of fish day. Like watch somebody in the dang social media. The filet of fish is the best ever. You shut your mouth. Whatever.
Man.
We had to have a fun start there. Travis Holmes. I mean, you and I.
Hey man, it's a party in Duval County, man. So let us have our fun.
We made it clear that we are certainly the most fun media casters in the Pro Sports Fans app. I mean, that's obvious. But for those out there too that are watching on the A7BN Sports Facebook Live or watching on Sartoba Media's Where the Struggle is Real to Be Awesome YouTube page. For those who are watching on Huddle Up. For those of you watching the Student of the Game stuff, be it on Twitter, Twitch, the SOTG, or on Facebook Live, any of that, where you're watching, if you're consuming this on the 3 Point Conversions iHeartRadio or on oldschool101.com leading into Sunday games because the Jags play Monday night this week, got a long week, you're still a winner. And even if you listen to it on the pod, you could tell why we're fun. But enough about this.
Brother, I owe you about 10 ding, 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 dings, and all the dings. Let's go.
That's right. Hey, listen, I'm getting out there. By the way, hey, listen, stay up to date during the week if you aren't already by Travis posting things up on BigCatCountry.com. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you this, and this will set up what will probably be the final bing for a long part of the episode. I wrote something up on the Jaguar Report about what was different in the Houston outing versus the Everbank outing. Obviously, Everbank referring to week 3. I wrote about that on the Jaguar Report. Bing! But Travis, I want to hear your version of what you thought was different between these two games.
The biggest thing is the difference in this week versus the first few weeks is, well, one, the offense and special teams kind of just got out of the way as far as turning the ball over. As far as making those big mistakes, like the fact that the defense was able to stop Houston on those first 3 drives, it opened up those opportunities for the offense to find themselves. And the offense didn't immediately score, on the first series, but it gave them a few series to kind of just work through any issues, figure it out, get on the scoreboard, and get an opportunity to take the lead and take control of the game. Whereas in week 3, it was more of playing from behind and trying to play catch up, trying to find yourself, and while coming back on a team that they had just started their, what was it, like a 4 or 5 game winning streak at the time, Houston. So it was kind of like just a bad situation. You gave them life early in the game, whereas in this situation, we took the life and made them have to scratch and claw back into the game. And I think that was the biggest issue, was the defense came to play this game. Offense played catch up, and it kind of just worked out well for both sides of the ball.
No, that's a great take. I mean, I wrote about it after week 3 on Jaguar Report. Bing! That really everybody had their worst game up to that point, except for Travis Etienne. Okay, that's definitely a quality take. I would have just said special teams up front, period, point blank. Now, granted, to your point, the offense did what they did, so Brandon McManus could score with the field goal to open the game. But this time, week 3, special teams was a negative net points, right? Whereas they were a positive this week. And I don't even have to get into Andrew Beck as a fullback scoring a touchdown in special teams as well. No missed field goals. McManus did miss a field goal in week 3. He did miss one here, but like he took care of business. What was his long? Like a 53-yarder. A lot of good stuff from the special teams, and just what a difference that turnaround makes. I know that there's a lot of complaining from the officials, from some Texans people, even ones I respect. Y'all got to understand, this was a let them play game. Both sides got away with stuff. And for every complaint about this catch or that catch, all I got to do is point to the officials giving Trevor an interception in his stat column that he did not actually throw, and I can pretty much end it there.
Right. And if you listen to the Jaguar sounds of the game, you could hear the coaching staff and the players talking to each other about the fact that they were basically letting them play, and that the offensive line and the secondary for the Texans were grabbing and holding, and the refs just weren't going to call it, and they were going to have to play through it. So it's just common knowledge, and this is not just fans saying this. This is active, film from the game, where the coaching staff and the players are all saying, hey man, they're out there holding, and they're just not going to call it. So you're going to have to figure out a way to win in spite of.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. And I think that's the good thing about Trevor's interception, air quotes, being early enough to where they can make that adjustment. And I could argue both teams kind of realized that early enough to where adjustments were made. I liked the physical play in the game. And listen, this is not me indicting the Houston Texans. There's a reason why I picked them to win 7 when everybody else was running for the hills outside of the state of Texas. And now it looks like I'm a pessimist picking even that. But come on, who had CJ Stroud MVP candidate and a team having both the potential offensive, the potential defensive, and the likely offensive player of the year on the same bleeding squad? No one had that, Travis Holmes. And if they claim they did outside of the state of Texas, they are in fact lying.
I mean, we're talking about they have 2 legitimate options for offensive player of the year. Offensive rookie of the year.
Oh yeah,
that piece.
Tank Dell votes though. Let's be real. I mean, I'm not saying he should. I'm saying he will. This is tantamount to Robert Griffin III, RG3, and Alfred Morris the year they both came out in Washington. Right? Nobody remembers who Alfred Morris is now. But, and actually, nobody remembers who RG3 is, thanks to the fact that, well, the only reason they remember him is because he's a talent on the air rather than on the field. But, and that's not to talk trash, it's because of injury.
I got you. But the only reason I point that out is just to not to make this a Texans podcast, but more just to give them their flowers, which lets us know just how good that win was, just how good that win felt for the Jaguars.
Listen here, if you're going to dive with Duval, you got to know thy foe. You got to look for the sharks in the water. And listen, these guys, if the Texans front office is smart, which there's been plenty of reason to question in the past, I get that. But if this new regime, this new culture, this new administration is what it is, we have to talk about these guys now so the fans everywhere know who to look for, because you're going to see them. You've heard me say this. I feel like you're going to see CJ Stroud at least nine. No, actually, at this point, they've played twice, 8 more times, 10 total games against the Jags alone. And that's because math, 5 years. And I'm not counting postseason yet. Good God, that could still allegedly happen depending on how seeding falls out, right?
Yeah.
So it's man, these Texans are a team that's on the rise, sort of in a way that they were with Deshaun Watson, with J.J. Watt, with DeAndre Hopkins and that group. I feel like they're not there this year. I think that's next year.
That's fair. They are on the rise. However, I want to make sure I acknowledge the fact that we did help them in this game. There are many people. We had the conversation on the PSF app when we talked about the fact that, hey, we left 7 to 11 points on the board in the first half of the game. We didn't get Calvin Ridley involved initially. We did have some issues in the red zone that popped his head back up again. And to that point, we're still 24th in the league in red zone scoring. Like, that's behind the Panthers, Packers, and Vikings. And Trevor Lawrence has the 5th worst red zone completion percentage right now. Like, these are things that we still have to work on. We're winning in spite of these things, but it's that we have the second highest NFL average depth of red zone targets at 10.3 yards per attempt, which is crazy when you're inside of the 20. So everything they're doing, so that's not just Trevor, that's Press Taylor and the scheme of the offense. They're doing everything vertical and outside of the hashes instead of trying to get that yak or those crossers. They have to make some adjustments still and maybe get that tight end in use. And hopefully we'll see some of that eventually this season before this playoffs get here.
Well, yeah, and that's where I would push back a little bit on the not using of Calvin Ridley. Calvin had his shots. He just did not bring the ball down.
I mean, yes, that is fair, but that is one catch for your quote unquote wide receiver one. I mean, we believe that to be the case, and in the whole first half of the game, because that was closer to the halftime.
The play calling tells us he's WR1, right?
Fair. Yeah. Yes.
We don't say anything. Those are the routes he runs. He is.
But he ended with 5 catches, nearly 90 yards, like 89 yards, and a touchdown.
A bad game, yeah.
A 2-point conversion all after halftime.
What a big 2-point conversion that was as well. But you've mentioned the halftime. Let me get into this first too. The whole decision to not take the points at the half, and I mentioned it specifically because Doug Peterson's answers was, well, if we didn't have the ball in the next half, then I definitely would have taken the points. That's a bad take. And I said this on the media cast. And listen, I'm not one to question a Super Bowl winning coach. I get nervous questioning coaches that I respect. You should have seen me shudder having to publicly say that Mike Tomlin should have started Kenny Pickett last year over Mitch Trubisky. Okay, I turned out to be right, and I hated every minute of it because I was still sleeping with one eye open, wondering when Omar Epps would be tapping on my window, asking me how dare I. Wait, Mike Tomlin. Whatever. Omar Epps is going to play him in the biopic, homie. Come on.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, and by the way, ESPN, get on the Mike Tomlin biopic. I mean, maybe they're waiting for him to get in the hall. I don't know. Anyway,
probably.
But I said what I said, Travis Holmes, for him to get in the hall. Anyway.
No arguments from my end.
No shade thrown. Even from the Jaguars' first rival team, I might add too. But I mean, that goes back to Cowher days. Anyways, back on track.
Right.
I hate that decision, and that I hate worse that response by Doug Peterson, who is another coach I absolutely respect.
Right. And I agree. I didn't love the response. I didn't like, and we talked about it live as doing the live stream on the PSF app. And you didn't want to go for it. I agree that we should go for it, but that was with the expectation or the understanding that this will be something direct. Like, this will be a quarterback sneak. This will be a dive. This will be something inside of the tackles, not a pitch. Don't make a 1-yard play a 7-yard play. And that's my thought process. Like, impose your will or go over the top. Do one of these things. And we talked about that. And I didn't agree with the style of trying to get a half of a yard. That's all at the end of the day.
that's a separate. Let's put that conversation over here, because on that I agree. If you're going to make the mistake of not taking the points, which if you look in the stream, I was shouting at the screen long before the play happened. This wasn't Captain Hindsight,
Right.
which
That's fair.
we're very mindful to not have him in our superhero universe. Okay, it's right now. It's the student, the champion, Ship, and John Shipley, and I don't know anybody else who you want to give a superhero name to that we throw props at often, but we'll think of them as we go along. But what I'll say is this: if you have those 3 points, you then with the ball have the ability to turn it into 10.
Bingo.
If you take Coach Peterson's attitude, well, what the heck, we have X. Well, now you've put yourself in a position where you could potentially walk away with nothing, which they did. The only reason this game is close is this decision, right?
You're not wrong. And this is a great conversation to have after a victory. And that's why we can have the conversation. And I know there's some people out there who are just like, on to Cincinnati. Yeah, but if you always act that way, then eventually you will lose a game on a bad decision, because we never evaluated the bad decisions that were previously made. So we win or lose, we wanted to have these conversations in a vacuum. So, and I think I agree with the overall thought process, though. Like, yeah, if you're playing conservative or if you're playing smart on the road, then yeah, you probably should just take the points. I mean, that's how Denver's put together their winning streak. It's simply just taking the points. They rarely ever go for it on 4th down. So you can see it working for some teams also in that argument.
That being said, there's a lot of places where Peterson goes for it on 4th, and I'm a huge fan. Like these things he does in the middle of the field instead of punting, love that he does that. I mean, that is the new world order of the NFL. That is the proper usage of analytics, right? As somebody who does data for a living and watch people get this wrong for so many different reasons, the analytics that actually have to do with going forward on 4th down in the middle of the field have nothing to do with whether or not you will make it. What? I mean, yeah, it's cute that the percentage is high that you will make it, and it's higher than most people will think. And a lot of people have, to quote my great friend Travis Holmes, have the lemon booty about 4th down. I totally get that. I also said on this show, by the way, I think this is your fault. But the real analytics are, what is the positive? What is the best case scenario should you kick it? The punt only gives you about another 10 or 20 yards if the kicker or the punter makes a mistake. It's more likely you're going to get a touchback the closer to the end zone you are without going for a field goal, right? That's simple physics, ladies and gentlemen.
So it's the opportunity cost. And that's what it's really about. Exactly. At this point, you may as well go for it because of the opportunity cost is minimal.
The reward is higher and the risk is minimalized. Exactly.
You got it.
But and there's other momentum factors. Like if his answer was, I believed in what our defense was doing and we were in CJ Stroud's face and we were causing problems and we were making life difficult and we were making the young quarterback uncomfortable, and I thought that they would be able to bail us out if we missed, that answer I could live with. Oh, well, if we didn't have the ball, I would have taken the points. No, it's trash. Do better, Doug.
Man, you are fired up on that one. All right.
I am on that one. I hated that answer because I know he's better than that, man. Don't coach speak me.
Well, maybe he did. Maybe he did have confidence in the defense, and maybe he was just looking forward to Josh Allen getting that 2.5 sack, and that shared sack. He knew what was coming in the future. He is the Captain Hindsight. How about that? Maybe that's it. Yeah, maybe Doug just knows. He knows what's coming. So we have Josh Allen having a heck of a second half. We have a lot of guys behind him: Roy Robertson, Jeremiah Ledbetter, Trevon Walker. You have a lot of guys just having big days, whether or not they even make the stat sheet. I'm like, all right, cool, dope. Let's talk about those guys because they helped close this game out. And that we had a field goal that was missed by half of a yard.
Yeah,
1 yard. And we had a big sack on that last series that resulted in that being that 58-yarder instead of a 56-yarder. Let's get into that.
Yeah, my guy over here, like making the Thanksgiving analogy. You said you spent all your labor setting the table. I'm over here just a lazy uncle drinking the damn eggnog. Let's get to this video right here.
So Oh man, on this one, this is Mr. Roy Robertson Harris with the sack with the swipe across the guard's face. Didn't know he was coming.
Yeah.
And it's just an incredible play, incredible move. And on this play, we have everyone's seen this. This is one of the Josh Allen sacks that they were trying to scheme up a screen pass behind it. But this is Jeremiah Ledbetter with the finger on him. He's the reason that CJ Stroud has to hold the ball, and he gets no stats on this play, but he is the reason that it happens. And finally, on one of the final sacks, this is Travon Walker just destroying the center, just popping his head back. I mean, that dude has to have whiplash on Wednesday of the week because that was just rough. But that again, it's that play. He shares a sack with Josh Allen, and he may not even, he doesn't always make the stat sheet, but no matter what, he always has an impact on the game just because of that athleticism and that violence. I love it.
But in this one, he certainly did RRH good for one of the 4 sacks on the day by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And of course, there were 0 for either side in week 3. Yet another thing that was just a little bit different in the way that the Duval would require for this huge epic victory. But that in mind, listen, we've talked at length about this offense and Calvin Ridley getting involved late, doing his job. The occasional scary. Oh, there's Christian Kirk. You forgot about him. Zay Jones being on the field. So obviously, eventually, Calvin Ridley would have to have a good game. But let's throw a little bit of love to the tight ends. There were some plays here that were a little weird, perhaps even better worded as strange. Travis, take it.
Brendan Strange, man. Again, he didn't make the stat sheet, but he just does a lot of cleanup work. I call him the Juggernaut from X-Men. Just keep an eye on him. He runs over 2 guys in the coverage. Both the flat defender and the hook defender, linebackers, end up on the ground because Brendan Strange is basically the Incredible Hulk. Just boom, just runs the guy over, and the second guy is on the ground. And then he blocks 2 guys, making this what may have been a 10-yard catch ends up being a 42-yard gain. With Luke Farrell just down there, just it's a tight end party, and this is the big play with Calvin Ridley. The timing is weirdly almost off where we're 1 yard from Brendan Strange and Trevor Lawrence colliding into each other, and that just being a horrendous play. I was happy that they were able to get this one off. But that was all. Yeah, we were this close to that execution just being off, and this huge play being a huge play for Houston. So happy to see it go the Jaguars' way.
Yeah, no, great job by Trevor on that one to climb the ladder here. And here you are making references that are worthy of both. Yeah, it's a juggernaut talking about the X-Men, and then of course you're talking about a tight end party. Let me cue up Cisco for the thong song. That'll be a song about some tight ends. That's not what you meant, anyways. I'll tell you what, some games that looked like they were going to be tight at first, not so tight upcoming here on Monday. You got the Bengals heading over to Everbank Stadium. The hope is that you and I both will be providing a watch along via MediaCast on the Pro Sports Fans app. At the very least, I will be there. We will have that working for us, but I'll put it this way, my guy. What do the Jags have to do to make sure they don't take this squad too lightly? Because Zach Taylor he's not the best coach in the NFL, but he's smart enough to take advantage of mistakes you might make. And Jake Browning is not Joey Burr, but this is a former Washington quarterback that isn't bad.
Right. So that's just going to be the weird thing because this is the Cincinnati Bengals who had their new quarterback in his first game against a divisional opponent who always plays them tight. They always play it just really close to the vest. So Jake Browning did okay in his first NFL start, like considering those circumstances. But honestly, just being real, the Steelers could have walked away with like 3 or 4 interceptions in that game because they got their hands on a lot of balls. So I know that they're going to they're going to coach around his deficiencies better than they did in this first game because I believe they only had 9 rushing attempts in the game, and 45 of Jamar Chase's receiving yards came on tip balls. Like that probably should have been interceptions. Like that happened. Insane, like which is an insane stat. So I say all that to say the Jaguars shouldn't take this team lightly because teams shouldn't have taken the Jaguars lightly when they lost against Houston. It's the same type of scenario where it's a week-to-week league, and a team that just got destroyed, a la the Denver Broncos versus Miami Dolphins, can turn around and end up beating the Kansas City Chiefs. You don't know. It's matchup by matchup. So you don't take it lightly, because Jake Browning, who also didn't have T. Higgins last week, who probably looks like he's probably going to play this week, that changes a lot of this. So you don't want to give them that opening. You don't want to give them life earlier in the game. You want to take them seriously and come out and handle business. In addition, the Bengals also got Sam Hubbard back last week against Pittsburgh, and knowing that we lost Robinson, it's going to be a good party for Ezra Cleveland, a good party for Walker Little and Harrison, as far as going against him and going against DJ Reader, kind of see what that's going to be like as far as stopping the pass. So this is going to be interesting, to say the least.
So for clarity, yeah, when you say Robinson, you don't mean Roy Robinson Harris, you mean Cam Robinson.
I mean Cam Robinson.
Yeah, recovering from the injury too. That's rough. And boy, by the way, for anybody who had any questions on the Ezra Cleveland acquisition, that just came up in damn spades, because if Walker Little is free to kick over to go back to tackle, where he has historically done a very solid job. Yeah. And Ezra Cleveland not looking terrible either. I would make the argument that, I would like to see a situation where Anton Harrison and Ezra Cleveland were on the same side and see how that goes. But right now, with Ezra Cleveland and Walker Little on the left side, that's the stronger side. That's the side if I'm gearing to stop Travis Etienne on the ground, or De'Annis Johnson, or anybody with the ground game running, it would be that side I would key first and have the middle linebacker involved. Right. So who knows? Maybe they'll coach accordingly with that. The Jaguars and Doug Peterson. Missing Cam is huge, and let's be clear. The main reason I said it early in the year, just when Cam was on suspension, and I kind of assumed he would miss time to injury. Not to talk trash on the guy, that's just been history. And this is the reason why I maintain the Jags are a 10-win team, a one playoff win team, and I don't think they'll get too much further. And this is just because that's the one part of the lineup they have to really address. And I was pushing forward in the draft. It just didn't happen. One could argue that the Take Binsby pick, maybe I'm more right than I thought I was at one point. I don't know. I remember seeing him in camp standing next to John Shipley and be like, I might have been wrong about this one, but we'll see. Time always tells on draft.
Exactly. You could be right this year and wrong next year. We'll never know. But for this year, it's looking more right than not. I'll give you that.
And I'll say this: if they got a young lineman who ended up doing just as well as Anton Harrison, I'd look like a bleeding genius right now. I know I'd be telling you all about that. That's
also fair. Yeah, that is also fair. And you obviously mentioned the Cam Robinson injury, of course. From just an FYI, from the Bengals' perspective, they also lost their will linebacker Logan Wilson and their starting cornerback Cam Taylor Britt, and we already talked about T. Higgins. So those are all the people who are kind of up in the air whether or not they're going to play. They lost Logan Wilson last week against Pittsburgh, and Cam Taylor was out for the Pittsburgh game. So we'll see how that goes as far as practice reports. And T. Higgins is probably going to practice on a limited basis. So we'll kind of just see what that's looking like. But for the Jaguars, we just pretty much have Tyson Campbell and Travis Etienne, both who are day by day and likely going to practice on a limited basis this week. So we'll see.
Well, and let me ask you this: if you're the Jags offense, how do you attack the Bengals? I would make the argument that Britt at corner missing is very close to, maybe not quite as desperate as the line situation for the Jags, but considering this receiver core, that's problematic.
Oh, no, it's absolutely problematic. But the biggest thing is it just depends on, we haven't seen a team attack the corners yet, because the last team they played was Pittsburgh. And we know they don't attack outside of the perimeter. But they did attack very much so vertically, with Freiermuth having over 100 yards receiving from the tight end spot last week. But the Jaguars haven't been using Evan Ingram in that way, just like the Texans struggled against the tight end, and even then Ingram didn't have this huge game, but the tight ends overall did.
The tight end core did,
the tight end core had an overall good game. So it may be another game just to that same vein. Like, it may be a game where the receivers can do really well, and the tight ends can do really well. But the weirdest part about this is the worst thing that Cincinnati does is stop the run. Uh, so it should be a Travis Etienne game if the Jaguars want to give that 25 to 30 attempts, or a Travis Etienne, Dearness Johnson type game, where they use the whole core to have a good game, something along those lines. So it's basically just it really feels like they can do what they want to do, whatever that is. I mean, we just said they can pass the ball to the receivers. Technically, they can pass the ball to the tight ends if they want to, or they could run the ball if they want to. So, what do the Jaguars want to do, and are they going to be good? Enforcing their will doing it is kind of the question at the end of the day, because Cincinnati seems to be struggling at stopping all these things.
Well, the saying goes, pass to run, pass to score, run to win. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to why they're bad at stopping the run, is because they're concentrating on shutting down the pass, which is weird for an AFC North team. Like, and also let's consider some of their opposition that they actually face in that division, right? You're facing the Browns. I think they got at least one game before their main running back went down, right?
Yeah.
They're facing the Steelers. That's a lot of running, The Ravens. Lamar Demetrius Jackson can hurt you both ways. So I think the stats are more indicative of the danger they face than it is their actual talent as a team. At the end of the day, I think the Jaguars to pass first to be balanced and create that same thing. That's what the data tells me. That's what watching the Bengals with the limited field I have tells me.
That's fair.
I'm not the former coach in the room too, so there's that. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it. But with that, Travis, I think we're in that stage of the show where you can go ahead and let us know what you think is going to go down in Duval on Monday night.
So I do think this is going to be one of those games where the running game ends up closing out the fourth quarter. We're probably going to get another 50 yards or so rushing just from trying to milk the clock and things of that nature. I do think it will be a pretty convincing win for the Jaguars overall. The only real question from my perspective is whether or not there will be some, garbage time points late in the game for the Bengals. But I have this one as an easy and obvious Monday night snooze fest for, Cincinnati Bengals fans, I should say. Jaguars 30, Bengals 13.
So this is fascinating. You have 30-13. I was this close to saying 31-14 until you said something about garbage time. So I think I'm going to go 31-20 on my score. But still, we're different to touchdown, dude, basically. Or I mean, like in total points, like because I have 31 instead of 30, which obviously means you're colossally incorrect. So
yes, I mean, but the funny thing that we both agree on is that the Jaguars offense is going to have some success. That's what it comes across as.
I see Trevor with 300 yards.
Whew, I love it. I love it. Now, this is a team that's going to try to pressure him a lot more than he's been pressured these past 2 weeks, and we know Trevor does well versus clean pockets. He does not do as well versus against pressure, and it just so happens that the two teams that he struggled, the two teams that he did well with, didn't pressure him much, and the team he did struggle with against San Francisco did pressure him a lot. So it's going to be curious to see finally when that one team does pressure him, how does he react? Does he still have that same 300 plus yard game, 250 yard game, clean pocket? Statistically, does he have that sort of game, or does he regress to that whole San Francisco kind of look? And I believe he's going to do well, because they're going to call it way different, way looser than they would call it that San Francisco game.
Right. And let's remember, though, the Bengals, while certainly not a bad defense, are not the Niners defense.
They're not the Niners.
That wasn't a dirty pocket. That was an outright jailbreak in most cases. They were not only getting pushed in the middle, they were getting on the outside as well, with no disrespect to any of the linemen here. I mean, Anton Harrison or whoever you want to point out. They're just that good. And they got Chase Young on top of it, right? So let's be clear.
Right. We agree. It really is just it's two guys for the most part that can dominate you on the Bengals front. There's four on San Francisco.
Yeah, if you slow Trey Hendrickson, I like the chances. If you get Trey Hendrickson to overcommit, Trevor's going to take a run lane. If Trey Hendrickson is stood up and forced to contain, to take that run threat seriously, which I believe that'll happen, then all that has to happen is the rookie has to handle his business, which, as awkward as that sounds, he has done more often than not. So, there's a winning recipe there. I'm not saying Trevor won't get sacked. I am saying I'm saying that the Jags will still control the ball relatively well. I don't see a turnover in this game. And I would even argue by either side, I don't see a turnover in this game. Browning does not look like. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be risky with the ball.
You are wild, sir. He will have 2 turnovers. I'm gonna say it now on the record.
Well, that's why you got 31-13. I don't think he has any turnovers. I'm committing to what you're calling the snooze fest. I think there'll be a lot of 3 and outs. Look for the Bengals to come out and do basically what the Texans did on third down conversion. I think it was 1 for 10 for Houston, right? That's the game I see.
He could have had 4 turnovers last week. He ended up only having, I believe it was 1 interception last week, but they dropped a lot of picks. Like, I watched that game closely. They dropped a lot of picks, and I'm like, goodness.
And listen, maybe this is me, for all the love I threw at the Jags defense, me not giving them enough credit. I think with the extra day to prepare and just more time and him getting more comfortable,
right,
you can see a quick advance. If I were to set the over-under, it would be at 1.5. 2, I think, is tall, but then what we're saying is maybe Browning makes one of them and somebody else on the offense makes the other. That's perfectly plausible.
That's fair. I got you.
So that'll do it for this week's edition of the Duval Dive. We could have gone this one could have kept going. This game is still wildly interesting, even Joey Burr isn't playing. I find that very I did not have that on the bingo card going into the show. Maybe it's just because the great champion himself, Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country, is that fun? Who knows? But for Travis Holmes, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of Jaguar Report. Travis, tell the world where you can be found, my guy.
You can find all my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars on bigcatcountry.com. Actually, we have yesterday's press availability with Doug Peterson and Press Taylor, Mike Caldwell listed on the site yesterday. Take a look at that. You can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes, and you can find me here every Friday, 11 a.m., Duval Dive, a Jaguars podcast. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, apologies in advance that we don't have it up on the PSF app for the live stuff. We're going to arrange that for next week. We'll get that right. But, of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram and Threads as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings covering your Jaguars with the Jaguar Report. And, of course, my work as well with the 3-point conversion. Check out any of the locker room interviews or anything like that I get video-wise on the 3-point conversion YouTube channel, and also this show on the 3-point conversion iHeart Radio channel. And, of course, my work as well covering UCF football and basketball with the Black and Gold Banneret, as well as my work with A7B in sports covering the Orlando Magic. They got 13 wins, man. It was December before they had 12. They're tied for a franchise. Anyways, this is a Jaguar show. I'm just that amazed by it. Anyways, for Travis Holmes, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.
Play that theme music.